Welcome to Bears on Tap, hosted by Quentin Q. Crisco, Samir Patel, Sonny Verma, and the one and only Ron Luce. Bringing you all the news, analysis, and opinions on the charter franchise, Chicago Bears.
Welcome back to another episode of Bears on Tap. It is Packers week. Your first place Chicago Bears, your number one seed Chicago Bears, go up to Lambeau, where we will see if Caleb Williams can stay undefeated in Wisconsin. But gentlemen, how are you doing this evening? Starting with Ron.
Q, I'm doing well. It feels weird being back on a microphone with you, good sir. It's been a hot minute. I've gotten to enjoy some good mic time with our other two guests here this evening, or I should say our co-hosts, really not our guests. They are part of the family now. It's like when you get really close to like another, like your friend's family, and they tell you you're no longer a guest, just go help yourself in the fridge. That's kind of what it feels like nowadays here around Bears on Tap. But I'm doing good, man. It's good to be back, and Green Bay sucks. Fuck the Packers. I'm ready to talk about it.
Samir and then Brendan, how are you guys doing?
Doing great, Q. Excited to be here as always. Packer Week is always holds such a special place in all of our hearts. In years past, we'd go in with maybe cautious optimism, maybe just blind fear, but this week feels a little bit different. And so, yeah, looking forward to chopping it up with you guys tonight.
I'm doing great as well. This is the best time of year, not only about the holidays and everything, but there's just something better when you're going through Christmas shopping, you're seeing all the lights go up, and you can also say, oh, wow, my football team is still very much relevant, and there's stuff to play for. And I don't know about you guys. I was picking up some food after the Black Friday win, and I was just driving, like listening to the post game. And I was just like, man, I'm like, this is like, I'm on cloud nine right now. Just the feeling of winning a big game like that. And I'm like, is this like what heroin feels like? Like, are we just on like just cloud, like the drug after a big Bears win and everybody's talking about it is unbelievable. And yeah, Packers week used to be a lot scarier and a lot more dreadful. And now it's just exciting.
Now, I love that you mentioned that, because I wanted to kind of transition into like, what's different about the emotions this year going into Packers week, right? Because like for me, the last few years, I'm like borderline dreading it, because it's just like it's the same old thing over and over. But this year, there's a nervousness that I'm feeling that I haven't felt probably since, like, I want to say Justin Fields year 2 going into Packers week, but it's been a while. So starting with Brendan, like, how do you feel stuff is kind of different right now?
Well, yeah, before with Packers week, I mean, look, there was always the blind, I don't want to say blind optimism, but the offseason optimism going into those early Packers games, because we're coming off an offseason worth of hype. Everybody's gassing themselves up about the Bears. And then sure enough, like, we don't know what we don't know. And they ended up getting their asses kicked. And by the time the other game comes, or whether it's usually like the first late game in the Packers season or the Packers game late in the season, you're just kind of like already beaten down. You're like, I know it's going to be an ass kicking. Just get it over with. This isn't fun for us anymore. I'm not nervous. I'm just excited about the opportunity for the Bears to continue to prove themselves when it comes to facing these upper echelon teams. You already did it with the Eagles. And now, just because everybody's talking about it, you can feel the confidence within the team. It's not just, hey, maybe we'll steal one in Green Bay. It feels like, no, we are built for this. We're a team that is hotter than pretty much everybody outside the Patriots right now. And we're ready to come at them and ready to, give them we're ready to give them our best shot. So I just feel good. I don't really know about the nervousness. It's just excitement.
Well, I was double muted. I was muted on my mic and on the computer, and I was like doing all the wrong things. Samir, how are you feeling, like, different emotion-wise going into this game?
No, it's a great question. And I echo a lot of what Brendan said. I kind of felt a little bit this way, not exactly the same, but Justin Fields' final year when the opening game was Green Bay at Chicago. And I think the Bears were actually like favored. And you're like, oh man, this is the first time we've been favored. And like, whatever. Justin Fields is coming off a crazy season. We got some help. The offense is going to be awesome. And then that didn't work out so well. But it was still a nervous energy because we hadn't seen that team yet. This one feels a little bit different because we've seen this team. They just came off a big win. And this is honestly, guys, the first time in a very long time where I feel like our head coach, A, understands this rivalry, and B, can go toe-to-toe with Green Bay's coach, right? Usually LaFleur has an advantage schematically over whoever we're rolling out there, right? Especially with Eberflus. I feel like this time we can count on our guy to be like, what are the Packers' weaknesses? How can we exploit that? And I think that gives me a lot of confidence. It gives me a lot of excitement.
Ron, any thoughts?
I think both of these gentlemen nailed it pretty well. I think to kind of keep it lightly here, it's just in years past, usually by the time we get to this rivalry, if it's late in the season, just like this one, the Bears are already out of it, right? And Brendan, you kind of shared in that sentiment of just by that point, you're kind of just over it. And it's just like, just kill us quickly. Like, don't make it some big drawn out thing. Just, make it is what it is. So what? So be it. But this year, there's a confidence in what this team can produce. It's not just, are the Chicago Bears going to be good? It's not that week one game from when Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears were hyped up going into that season. The hype is there because the results are there. And that's the difference, right? We haven't seen a team like this in a hot minute. And even that 2018 Bears team, Nick DeMaio wrote a great article today over at ontapsportsnet.com kind of highlighting why this Bears team's not the 2018 Bears. And the offensive comparisons are there. The numbers for the 2018 Bears team, that offense was if you really look at it. They were okay. They weren't great. They were okay. This offense is great. This defense is doing things that feel outerworldly at this point in terms of taking the ball away. It's a perfect storm, I think, entering this part of the season. And I think there's that extra hype because it's not one team's in contention and one team's out of it, or it's not the beginning of the season where it's 0-0. These two teams are a half a game away from each other. Like there is tangible playoff seeding, NFC North Championship. All of that is on the line. And I think there's also that little extra too, because it's at Lambeau to start. And then they come to Soldier Field. It feels like the last couple of years it's always been they're at Soldier Field first, then they go to Lambeau. So we get to kind of flip that script a little bit here. And we get to see them again in 2 weeks. So there's a lot of storylines building up as this week starts. And I think to echo the other, to echo Brendan and Samir, like that's the driver of the excitement is there's actually something to play for here against the Green Bay Packers. It's not just the Green Bay Packers rivalry. There's so many more storylines attached to that because of the nature of how things are shaping up in the NFL.
Now, you guys are making my transitions really easy here because my next comment was going to be about, or my next topic I wanted to bring up is about that there is a lot on the line, and there's some demons, there's some skeletons in the closet when it comes to the Bears playing the Packers in big moments that like are going to impact the Bears season the rest of the way. We think back to starting in 2010 NFC Championship game, brutal. Jay Cutler, torn up knee, all the, hellstorm that came from that. And, no matter how you feel about that game, I can guarantee you as a Bears fan, it's not good. However you walked away feeling from that game, it's not a good feeling. 2013, week 17, which was the final game of the year back in 2013. Bears Packers, I believe it was final game of the year. But Aaron Rodgers, Chris Conte blown coverage finds I think it was Randall Cobb, just touchdown, game over. There, one of my best friends. I met him going to Texas Tech University. So he's from Texas. He moved to Chicago in the last 2 years, and he's become a Bears fan in that time, right? And I'm I'm telling him, like he's talking to me about stuff about the Packers. I'm just like, I find myself sending him all these videos of the Green Bay Packers destroying the Chicago Bears' hopes and dreams to try to give him an idea of what like this rivalry, the trauma from it. So starting with Ron here, what are those skeletons in the closet right now, and how are those kind of impacting the way that you're looking at this game?
Well, thank you first off for opening a lot of old wounds. Really appreciate that. I just had PTSD like flashbacks. I'm that little dog in the or the polar bear in the meme where they got the helicopters everywhere. That's how I feel right now, with you going through all those memories of Packers and Bears past. But I think too. I think the skeletons is just really, it's just Bears fans have been sick of this team being shit. And you want, with your rival, you want to be competitive. That's what makes a rivalry a rivalry. This rivalry hasn't been competitive for a long time. And sure, you can probably equate a lot of that to Aaron Rodgers playing quarterback for the Green Bay Packers, but he's not there anymore, right? This is the Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur show. This is a completely different looking team than it was in years past. And I think because of that, like with this version of the Bears, I don't know if there's really a lot of demons. Like maybe the guys that were drafted in 2020 that are the quote unquote old heads on the team, like Jalen Johnson and Cole Kmet, have some demons because they've been in this rivalry now for 5 seasons. But outside of that, we're still kind of looking around and wondering what demons are there for this team next time. I think that's the beauty of this version of the Bears. They haven't been around for any of these stench-wrecking losses. This coaching staff wasn't there. Poles has been there, and he's gotten to taste it a little bit. But kind of going back to Brendan's point a little bit early, like you guys both brought it up. Like this is a coach that understands the NFC North and understands the rivalries within that division. I don't know if I have any skeletons, Q. I just kind of want to bury them even deeper in the back of the closet.
So you're with Matt here in the comments saying, stop living in the past. That's who they've been. Let's be a team that expects to win. Come on, guys. Matt, I do expect to win this game, but I'd be lying if I didn't say that expectation brings up a little bit of hesitancy for me. But Brendan, what are your thoughts?
Guys, the demons were exercised earlier this January. I was at Lambeau Field for the regular season finale, the 2024 finale, when everybody just wanted the season to end because it was the season from hell. And I'm going to try not to be long-winded here, but I'm walking into that stadium. Those Packers fans, they were treating me like a wounded animal. Like, oh, my dear sweet child, come here. You're safe now. We'll take good care of you. We pity you. You want some New Glarus? We'll give you that. And I just said, yeah, I'm just here to, take my whooping. Got some free tickets. This is going to be whatever. And they were saying to me like, hey, we're kind of nervous about this. I mean, I think the Packers, they're not in a great spot right now. And then seeing Caleb Williams drive the team down, even after, I believe it was a DJ Moore fumble, where the Packers had the chance to ice the game. They couldn't. And Caleb with ice in his veins, that's really, you saw moments of the Iceman coming to life. The Cairo Santos kick, those fans were pissed. And it just felt like all of the demons, all of the crap, everything was vanquished from that moment because of the quarterback that was in place and that core of the team that is still in place. And this is why going back to when the Bears were losing, remember that? Losing. Who remembers that? When the Bears were actually, kept losing at the end of seasons and people kept saying, oh, just lose out. Doesn't matter. I'm like, no, sometimes these wins can lead to good things for the next season. And I think for that, Caleb Williams getting that win, especially in Lambeau Field, was huge because I think that gave him a lot of confidence. That gave that team a lot of confidence. Ben Johnson is already talking crap about Matt LaFleur. Like, hey, I enjoyed beating him. They're ready for this challenge now. So if the losing streak was still in place and you still had to feel like, oh, the Bears still can't beat the Packers, I'd feel the same, guys. I totally feel that, the past is scaring me and everything. I don't feel that way anymore. And it is mainly because of Caleb Williams and what this core is and how it just feels like they're fearless.
Now, Samir, do you have any thoughts to pair with that, with what Ron and Brendan have shared here.
I echo what you guys are saying. It feels like a new regime because it is, right? You look at the two most important positions on a football team: head coach, quarterback. Now, head coach is a first-year head coach, but he's seen these Packers before. He's schemed against these Packers before. These players, right? That field. He knows that. He knows our division. 5-1 when he was the offensive coordinator of the Lions. He went 5-1 against the Packers. He's not scared of them. He knows what to do. Caleb Williams, 1-0 at Lambeau Field. He's got no demons. The two most important positions, they're doing fine. They're doing just fine at Lambeau. And so I don't think that they have that same stigma of, oh boy, here we're going up to Lambeau again. You know, we know how this went 2 years ago, or I have that PTSD, like Ron said, with those open wounds. We don't have that, right? All we have is confident men that have gone into that building and won before, and they fully expect to do it again.
So what I'm hearing is I'm the only one constantly vacillating between like very confident and very like, I've been here before. Like I'm
scared. I'm scared.
Okay.
That was a front.
Okay.
Yeah.
But let's jump into some of these comments before we get to the rosters. So Squeegee says we beat them at Lambeau last year without proper coaching and no offensive line. Very true. That I didn't even grade the offensive line week 18 last year because it was like, what am I grading? Why do I care about these guys? And then
you didn't want to grade Jake Curran?
No.
Oh my God.
I didn't want to grade Jake Curran ever again.
Did you see the Dan Wiederer tweet that listed out the starting offensive line today when he's like, there's Larry Borum, there's Jake Curran, Coleman Shelton. I can't even remember the right guard. Well, Matt Pryor. And then Darnell Wright. And they beat them with Larry Borum and Jake Curran on the left side of the line. And now you have Joe Tooney.
It's laughable when you think about what that O line was. We got Matt saying F. LaFleur, and that this team is mentally geared to win. They will not lose this game. Squeegee saying that Montez is settling into the scheme. Edwards and Sewell practice today, and that he's a little worried. He was worried about the Bears defense closing out games, but they did it with 6 starters missing a few weeks ago. So that has to get better. It seems like it's going the right direction. And then let's see. We have Seth saying he's excited for Ben versus Halfley and Matt versus Dennis. Exciting on both sides. Yeah, we got some good coaching matchups here, and an early prediction from Dylan here: Bears 23, Packers 20. So we will see. We'll get to our predictions at the end of the show. But for now, let's go ahead and jump in to this Green Bay roster, and sticking a little bit with the trend here of like talking about Matt LaFleur, like Seth was in the comments, starting with Ron. We'll just go in order of as we're in the line, like Ron, then Samir, then Brendan. Where are your thoughts with Jordan Love paired with Matt LaFleur and kind of how you slow that offense down?
I think so many of these Shanahan-derived offenses, so LaFleur, McVay, Shanahan, you name it, right? The elements of the West Coast offense. It's all about rhythm. It's all about playing on time. And now, granted, most offenses in football are about playing on time. But these especially, because it'll cover up a lot of flaws that a quarterback has. Now, I don't think Jordan Love's a horrendous quarterback, but I don't think he's Aaron Rodgers, right? I don't think there's that level of fear and concern with the player. And I think it's really for the Bears, it's going to be just making him uncomfortable and forcing him to play off script. I think that's the key to beating the LaFleur system. If you get them consistently off script, it frustrates the process and will continually knock them down a peg in terms of the versatility of what they can do. Now, granted, there's also been some of the concern over the last few years of, well, do they have the proper weaponry? Who are the guys that they can really turn to? You look at this offense right now, Christian Watson is starting to look like a second-round pick that they, used very high draft capital on. He's finally starting to play like that player. Romeo Doubs has been great for them. Obviously, no Tucker Kraft is a huge missing piece from this offense right now. I'd argue maybe the biggest missing piece. And then they have Jacobs in the backfield. But I think when it comes to Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur, their key has always been playing on time and playing in rhythm. And if you can disrupt that continually throughout the course of a game, it's going to frustrate them enough where they have to go off script, and that's not something they like to do.
Samir, what are your thoughts as far as Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur are concerned?
So Jordan Love he's very streaky, right? He gets on these roller coaster up and downs. And I think that frustrates Matt LaFleur. I think, and I don't have evidence to back this up, but I do believe that LaFleur can deviate from his game plan if he feels like Love is not putting him in the best position to win. Like last week, Love was having a great game against the Lions on Thanksgiving. He trusted Love to make a 4th down throw to ice the game because he was having a great game. But if Love throws an early pick or is not playing on time or does something boneheaded, LaFleur gets very conservative and then goes into his little shell and gets the play calling gets more conservative. He takes the ball out of Love's hands. I think he wants to trust his quarterback. I don't think he fully does, though. I think he's like, okay, my quarterback's streaky. If he's rolling, he's rolling. If he's not, whoa, let's figure out what else we're going to do, because I don't want him throwing a ton, or I don't really trust him all that much. So what will happen when he meets Dennis Allen's defense? I'm very interested to see that. I see that left guard, Mr. Banks there. We might get into him in maybe a nicest man segment. I'm not sure, but that looks to be a spot that maybe the defensive tackles can take advantage of, because we haven't had a ton of pressure from those D tackles in the last couple of weeks. So I'd like to see that pick up, but I'd be interested to see how much leeway LaFleur gives Love if Love starts to, go off the rails a little bit.
Brendan?
Ron, Samir, you guys hit on a lot of points that I was going to mention. I think playing off playing off scheme is definitely going to be something that's key. I know Jordan Love wasn't particularly effective last week when he was on the move, when the Lions were able to get pressure on him. I see his deep ball just is something that I don't even know how to describe it. Like, it looks like it should easily be picked every single time with how he's throwing off his back foot, and yet somehow, some way, a Packers receiver comes down with the ball. I wonder how well that's going to work against somebody like Kevin Byard, who is just reading quarterbacks like a book lately. I think of like the Jalen Hurts play on Friday where he clearly read him, moved in front of the receiver to get the pick. He's done that a few times this year. I think that is definitely going to be a weakness for Jordan Love throwing against this Bears secondary with him in the back at the back end. I'll also say I think Tucker Kraft being out is a huge difference maker for the Bears defense. However, I think also with some of the receivers coming back, Matt LaFleur over the last week or so, he's been able to make Jordan Love more comfortable in terms of like who he's throwing to and get the offense in a different position where it's been. Clearly, they had a formula that was working. That gets taken away, and it takes some time for them to figure out something new. And now you're seeing Christian Watson emerge. I'm a huge Christian Watson fan. I think he's very dangerous when he gets going. Some of the other receivers are coming back, so they're leaning less on the tight end, and they're trying to figure out a way to get the receivers more involved, and it's starting to work now. So that, I think, is, clearly you have to watch some of those potential mismatches, but as Samir said, getting pressure on Jordan Love is going to be key. I really want to see how that deep ball works out. And then if you can kind of take away some of those weapons that Jordan Love's been able to establish chemistry with recently, that's going to be a big factor.
Yeah. And so like, I asked this mainly because last night I went back and watched back that Lions Packers game from Thanksgiving, because, during Thanksgiving, you're with family, you're talking about other stuff. There's a lot going on. You're not really watching it that closely all the time. And it brought me back thinking of these previous Packers games that I've watched and previous Bears Packers matchups I've watched with Jordan Love. And it's like, I don't think he's a fast starter. Right. And I was looking at, like, in the first quarter, it was just like errant throw, awkward fumble moment, back foot throws all the time, throwing up 50-50 balls. And it's like, if you can get, to Samir's point, Matt LaFleur to lose that trust in him early in the game when he's giving you these opportunities, I feel like all of Love's stats come late in the game. And once LaFleur has had a chance to set up enough for them to fully capitalize on. And I mean, Love is a good quarterback, right? Like his numbers are there. He is doing it at this point. And like last week, 234 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 7.8 yards per attempt. The numbers are all there. But if at halftime you told me that those would be his end of game numbers from just watching the game, I'd be like, no way. You know, so like I'm kind of with I think I'm with you, Samir. Like you gotta capitalize in the early moments before Matt LaFleur can really his scheming can take full effect to take advantage. But why don't we go ahead and jump into our first segment here?
The baddest man.
All right, since you finished the last one, I'm gonna toss this one to you first. Who is your baddest man on the Green Bay Packers?
Yay, I get the easy pick. I literally was double checking my notes to be like, okay, who else can I pick when this guy goes off the board? But I'm just going to take the easy answer. It's Micah Parsons. I mean, my God, one of the best edge rushers in the game right now. If Myles Garrett wasn't having the season that he's having, I'm sure Micah Parsons would get a little bit more attention that he's getting. Not that he's not getting attention, but you know what I mean. Just, one of the sack leaders, the pressure numbers out of control. It feels like he's really been settling into this defense too. Like you get the initial excitement from him coming in, and it's kind of like the Khalil Mack factor that the Bears had in 2018. Just the sheer excitement and, opportunity that the defense has to get a weapon like that. And then it kind of fades away a little bit. And then once he has a chance to really settle in, then you can see sort of, what he's able to do with the defense. I mean, he was outstanding against the Lions. I believe he had 2.5 sacks in that game alone. Just an absolute game wrecker that Chicago is going to have to be on their P's and Q's to make sure that they keep him at bay. Fortunately, they've had these types of games before where they've had to face these, great edge rushers like Max Crosby and TJ Watt. And I'm trying to think there's probably at least one more I'm missing. Jonathan Grenard, maybe not on the same level, but you get it. So the fact that they have experience with that, Ben Johnson knows, okay, here's what I need to do to kind of protect one side or the other. That at least makes me feel more confident that, the Bears can, out scheme Mark Hafley and ensure that Micah Parsons doesn't wreck the game as much, but he's certainly capable of it. He is the baddest man on that football field. No questions asked.
Man, and you're right. He is the baddest man, and he is the most valuable player on this defense by far. But I've always been a bit of a Micah Parsons hater, and I think it's because, through draft work, I've learned I don't like small defensive ends. I want defensive tackles. If I had the option to play 4 defensive tackles, I'd probably do it if my heart was there. But there's something about a player who seems so situation specific to me where he's so valuable when you have the lead, right? You cannot predictably throw the football against Micah Parsons because he will be in that backfield all game long. But when you're playing with a lead or more neutral situation, that's where I've always kind of questioned Parsons' value. And I'm not sure what that even means from a contract perspective, what he's worth in a trade perspective, but it's just something that's always stood out to me where I'm sitting there going I'm sitting here right now thinking the Cowboys won the trade because they got Quinnen Williams, a first round pick, and Kenny Clark essentially out of it. So I don't know. I always have to mention that with Parsons, and I've always been a bit of a Micah Parsons hater, and I'm probably even more so now that he is a Packer. But you're right, he is the baddest man on that defense, and if they get a lead, he is terrifying. I don't know that if the Bears are able to take an early lead, I think you can neutralize him, which is promising to me.
Mm-hmm.
But Samir, where are you going for your baddest man?
Yeah, obviously, that defense led by Micah is a great pick, Brendan. And I was just thinking about it. Can you believe that we get Micah, Myles, Micah in 3 consecutive weeks? It's like, hello, Ozzy, good luck, So that's going to be fun. And then Aiden Hutchinson, we get a break and then Aiden. So it's going to be a fun time for our offensive line after that. So I'm going to go the other side of the ball. I know the defense is the strength of the Packers, but there's no individual person on Green Bay's offense that scares me. So I'm going to go with the guy that's going to touch the ball every play, who we talked about a little bit earlier with Jordan Love. He's got 104 passer rating. I think that's 5th in the NFL, 19 touchdowns, 3 picks. You know, he's doing, like you said, Q, the numbers are there. And in 4 career games against the Bears, he's got close to 900 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 1 pick, and like a passer rating of 121 or something. So he's as much as Aaron Rodgers has killed us, you know, he's getting there, right? He's on his way. He's fitting that mold. And so that does bring back some PTSD memories. He's also pretty sneakily good sack avoider. Like, he doesn't have that rushing capability that Caleb does, or even somebody like Jackson Dart would, you know, if he doesn't get cremated on the field. But he is a pretty good sack avoider. And if we have a meager pass rush, which I think we can kind of all agree without getting exotic, we kind of do at this point, he's going to have some time back there to do his fadeaway jump passes, which, as Brandon pointed out, always seem to get completed somehow, some way. So if I see Jordan Love take a fadeaway 50-yard bomb, my heart's going to be in my throat, because I'm thinking, God damn it, this guy's going to do it again. So for me, he's probably the baddest man that I would pick right now.
Yeah, I think that's a fair take. You know, I mean, we talked about him some earlier and kind of how we think you can stop him, but at the end of the day, no one's really stopped him this year, and that does matter. But Ron, where are you going for your baddest man?
You know, I think I'm just so used to watching the Bears get gashed in the run game by the Packers. Game in and game out under Matt LaFleur, especially. Matt LaFleur, I would argue, is up there with Ben Johnson in the terms of how he can scheme up the run game sometimes. And for that reason, Josh Jacobs is the baddest man for me. To the point, I think Jordan Love's going to get plenty of opportunity to throw the football. He's going to get plenty of opportunity to make plays in the passing game. But if the Packers get what they really want, it's going to have to be through Josh Jacobs. They're going to have to run the football effectively, because more than probably anybody in the league, they love play action pass. They always have under Matt LaFleur. That's a very big Shanahan concept, is the play action pass and getting to that to take calculated deep shots late in the game. So I'm going to go with Jacobs, because Jacobs, it went from Aaron Jones to Josh Jacobs, and that always scares the shit out of me. You want to talk about puckering buttholes? That gets me puckering, is when the Packers have to run the football. Now, I will say the Bears defense, I think, has done an admirable job against some pretty good backs recently of minimizing the run and getting a little creative, especially with a depleted linebacking core. But there's something about the green and yellow when it comes to the run game that always scares the shit out of me. So I'm going to go with Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, and I just want to piggyback off that, Ron. When it comes to how the Bears are, I think there's going to be a chess match with Matt LaFleur and Ben Johnson with how the Bears are controlling the time of possession over the last few games, these long sustained drives. It's going to be imperative for the Packers to have those long possessions, getting the run game going, keeping the Bears offense off the field, because now you've seen they're going to gash defenses and pound it over and over again. Other teams are going to have to find ways to do the same thing. And that's where Josh Jacobs can really become dangerous.
To that point, I was looking at the Packers numbers coming into this, and I am very confused by their defensive numbers, frankly. I mean, they're 6th fewest passing yards allowed, 8th fewest rush yards allowed, 6th fewest points, 4th fewest yards in total. But they have been on the field on a per drive basis longer than any team in the NFL. 32nd in average time of possession defensively. 31st in average plays per drive allowed. It's a very odd mix. 16th in yards allowed per drive, 12th in points allowed per drive. So they've played a very bend don't break style, I think, but they're not like, they haven't forced many turnovers either. They're bottom half of the league in turnovers force. It's just a odd mix. I felt like it was a good place to insert that, since the time of possession was getting discussed, and that's something that the Bears have done a very good job of lately. But for my baddest man, I'm going with the guy who scares me the most on this team outside of Micah Parsons, because you know, I got to knock on wood if I'm going to knock Micah. I got to say he also scares me because he's a beast. But it's Christian Watson. No one on this team outside of Parsons scares me more than Christian Watson. 4.3 speed, true burner, game-changing speed. He has his issues catching the football sometimes. He has some issues contested with like any type of physicality at the catch point, but there are times where there's no one within 5 yards of him catching the football. Because he is just faster than everyone else on the field, and that scares me. Deep ball specialist, he's a home run play waiting to happen, and the Bears need to keep him locked up in this game because he scares me. But let's look at some of these comments here. So we got Scott asking over under 2.5 duck passes get picked off from Love. Then we got Matt here saying he's put $1,000 on the Bears to win. I assume that's dollars. He just says 1,000, but it is Toyotathon to Seth's point. I know Brendan, you mentioned earlier today that you're more of a happy Honda Days guy. So like, hopefully that stays true. But Matt also mentioned that we get TJ back this week. Jalen and Kyler are back, and he says hopefully Edmonds is back. I believe Edmonds is on IR, so I'm not sure that one's happening. But and then a good point from Jeremy Wyatt here: stop the run, and turnovers. That's a good mix. But let's jump on over to the Bears roster, and starting with Samir this time. Who is the baddest man on the Bears this week?
So I'm going to go with a guy coming off of a monster game. That's going to be our running back, Kyle Monangai. I think it was a confidence-boosting type of game for him because that Philadelphia defense is no joke, and he carried that rock. I do think that and this is like, I know Q, you kind of sometimes allude to this where it's like this guy needs to be the baddest man on the field just based on maybe a strategy. I do think that Green Bay is going to stack the box because they saw what happened with Philly last week, and they'd be like, Caleb threw for less than 50% completion percentage. They ran all over the Eagles. Let's just stack the box and maybe he'll throw us some interceptions. So I think Kyle Monangai is almost going to have to be a bad man, right? The Bears aren't going to win if they can't get the run to work. That's a lot of what their offense is predicated on. And I mean, Parsons, like you said, is just too good, right? To go back and drop back 40 times a game. The injury to Devontae Wyatt is huge in the middle. It opens up that middle for Monangai. Lucas Van Ness is in a boot, one of their key linebackers. I don't know if he's going to play, but Monangai is best at running between the tackles and taking some players with him. And I think that hole left by Wyatt, I think the Bears are going to try to expose that and get violent with them and play that smash mouth type of football. So I'm going to go with the rookie Kyle Monangai.
Ron, where are you going for yours?
Oh, Q, I've been waiting for this one. This one's going to be fun because it plays off of Brendan's baddest man, of course. Everybody's worried about Micah Parsons. You know who's not worried about Micah Parsons? Caleb Williams, because he's greased up deaf guy. There's nobody in the world that I want playing quarterback when Parsons is on the field than greased up deaf guy number 18. Because we saw it again. I remember that the Max Crosby effect in that Raiders game very vividly. That's frustrating when Caleb Williams is dipping, dodging, and diving out of sacks on a regular basis because of that escapability. And again, he's 1-0 at Lambeau Field in his career. He's the Iceman. If there's anybody, he's relishing in this week. He wants to go up there and start to change the narrative instead of the Rodgers owning the Bears. He wants to own the Packers. He wants to get in on those fake shares of the team that people think they're actually owning, the Green Bay Packers, and that shitty little piece of paper they paid $175 for. He wants a piece of that action. He wants a piece of that ass. And I'll tell you what, man, I can't wait to watch Parsons try to just get him and just get absolutely Houdini'd by Williams on Sunday. And I'm just going to yell and scream at my television. That's the greased up deaf guy. He strikes again. And then I'm going to text you, Q, because you know damn well you're getting one of those texts. So I'm going to go number 18, man. I think if he has that ice in his veins and he's got that kind of that moxie and that angst toward the Packers just as being a part of this rivalry, he's going to want to come out on top. And he's got that kind of got that fuck you factor in the back of his mind. And I'm riding high with number 18 this week.
All right. I love it. I love me some greased up deaf guy. But Brendan, Where are you going for your baddest man on the Bears?
Let me just say, Ron took pretty much all the words out of my mouth, aside from greased up deaf guy. I had Caleb Williams locked and loaded. Everything you said, love it. You presented it well. So well done on that. I was going to kind of follow Samir's point as well, thinking of like the run game, some of the guys up front. But you know what? I'm going to stick to a guy that I mentioned earlier, and I'm going to say Kevin Byard. Kevin Byard, with how he sees the field, I just think he can manipulate some quarterbacks into some stupid ass throws. And I'm going to shout out the 79th and Hallis guys. Joe Lewis, great follow on Twitter. Every time he's got these memes loaded up for quarterbacks, throwing BLTs. And he's always like, Jordan Love is the BLT king. He's like, I know Jordan Love's ready for a BLT. And he's prone to some of these games. I think you guys, when you said, Q, I think you said it. Jordan Love is a good quarterback. He's not Aaron Rodgers, but he's good. That being said, he has those dodo throws in him, and he has those bad games in him too. And I think a guy like Kevin Byard, with most of the defense coming back, especially if somebody like TJ Edwards comes back, you don't have to worry about as much as he may have to with the linebacker position. Even though DeMarco Jackson played well, you can free yourself up a little bit. Same with Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon coming back. I just think this is a game where Kevin Byard can shine once again, picking off some of those duck throws that our awesome commenters talked about. And this is a game where he's going to create a turnover. He's going to break up plays and read what Jordan Love is doing before he can do some damage.
Yeah, I think that's a great choice. Kevin Byard was one that I had written down here as an option that I was looking at. But ultimately, I mean, I'm going to go with a guy who I don't think has been the baddest man all year. And that is Grady Jarrett. I like his matchup in this game. I think he's really been coming on the last few weeks and starting to look like a guy who they paid all that money for him to be. Like, I think health was playing a factor for a large portion of the season. To Ben Johnson's early points this year, we might be playing our best football in December. It feels like Grady Jarrett's starting to play his best football coming into this final stretch of the season. And I need him to continue it. I think this game, for some of the matchups that he's going to be getting with, I'm not a big believer in Green Bay's guards' ability to handle speed on the inside. And that and especially leverage speed, like Grady Jarrett brings you with his, the shorter height that he has, that ability to get into pads and then just work his way quickly through it. I think he might be in for a big game this week. So I'm going with Grady Jarrett. But
Ooh,
go ahead.
I just remember the comments, the trash talk he gave to Jordan Love when he was with the Falcons too. So that's something. He was jawing with them quite a bit. I remember when he signed, that was going around. So that's going to be fun.
That's right. I didn't even think about that. That's a great poll there, Brendan. But let's go ahead and get to our nicest man segment.
The nicest man.
All right, kicking this one to Ron first. Who worries you on the Bears this week? What's a guy that you're like, that spot's a little scary for me?
Can I choose the puppy in the video? Is that acceptable? No. Okay.
You could.
I love the puppy. It's the only reason I enjoy this segment is getting to see that puppy. You know what? Man, I think this is going to be controversial. People aren't going to like it, but I'm going to say it anyway. It might be Jalen Johnson this week because he's going to have to run step for step with Christian Watson in that 4.3 speed. If there's anybody that I think can be physical enough with Watson to throw him off his game, I believe it's Jalen Johnson. I'm curious to see how they match that up too. Do you decide to go with Nashawn Wright because of his height against a guy like Watson? Because I think Watson's 6'3", 6'4". He's a big boy. I think whoever has to guard Watson is my nicest man. And it could be Jalen Johnson. So that's why I think this is kind of controversial. But that's a bitch of a matchup for either one of the outside corners this week. And I'm really intrigued to see how that kind of sets up because it's going to be CJ GJ and Kyler Gordon on the inside in the nickel and dime. Who's going to be the guy that's matched up on Watson this week? And who's got that just absolute bitch of a matchup? Because, again, you put it beautifully, Q. He's a big play waiting to happen. And somebody's going to have to try to nullify him for most of the game. So I'll say the outside corner with the job of guarding Mr. Christian Watson. He's 9 that I'm actually concerned about, not the great value version that's up in Minnesota.
I like that final comment there. That's just the cherry on top. But Brendan, where are you going for your nicest man on the Bears?
I'm digging a little deep here because I don't know, maybe I'm just way too overconfident. I think with Andrew Billings likely going to be out, he has a concussion. He wasn't seen at practice today. That nose tackle spot is going to be interesting because I don't know, like Grady or Javon Dexter, I don't want to say he's small, but he's not the best run defender. Grady Jarrett, same thing. So I think that's going to be Jonathan Ford, and I'm a little nervous for Jonathan Ford, playing that run game. I know the Packers interior linemen aren't great, but I just think that's a matchup knowing if Billings is out. Billings hasn't been like great, but he's still a good run stuffer. He eats up space. He's still got a good motor for as big as he is. So somebody like Jonathan Ford, who's likely going to step into that spot, I just think he's not going to be good enough to kind of like hold down his position in that left side of the line, depending on where he ends up. That could be, something the Packers could take advantage of.
That's a great poll, Brandon. I didn't even realize Billings was going to be out when I was making this graphic, clearly. Because, you get Ford lined up on the same side as Austin Booker. I have to think they're licking their chops to run right at those two. Because I'm with you. I don't think Ford is the type of guy who can play a ton of snaps out there, even if it's mostly rundowns, and really be as effective. I do think Dexter is their best one tech when it comes to like taking on two teams on this team at this point, just because I don't think it's ever really been Billings' game. His game has always been more shooting, and he added a ton of weight this year, as we've all seen. And it's like Billings' role is to eat space with power, right? Like that's all he's out there for sometimes. And I'm not sure Ford can fill that same role. So I think that's a great choice from you there. But Samir, where are you going for your nicest man?
So this is more of a culmination, I think, of a couple weeks, but I'm going to go with Rome Odunze for my nicest man. I feel like he has started out great. He's kind of fallen off a little bit. How is he going to match up with these corners that like to jam? The safety play for the Packers has been good. McKinney isn't having as good of a year this year as he did last year, but him and Evan Williams are still quite a safety tandem. And I think I'd like to see Rome get going a little bit. I feel like his rapport with Williams needs some work. And if you go back to last year, DJ had a pretty good game, minus the fumble that Brendan alluded to earlier when that set up that McManus field goal. But he caught that game-winning touchdown catch, not game-winning, but it put him in the field goal range. So he's got a little bit of a familiarity with this Packers defense, and I feel like Rome, we haven't seen enough for him in the last couple weeks. And I'm a little worried he's going to get swallowed up with the offensive game plan. Just kind of be like, hey, how many targets did he have? I don't really remember seeing a big play out of him. So I'm more of a challenge, I guess, because Rome listens to the show. Rome, this is for you. I want you to come out and ball. All right. We're anxious to see it.
Scott in agreement here with you, Samir, too. He said the nicest guy is going to be Rome. He says the Bears plan is a bunch of 3-step drops to prevent Parsons from being a game breaker. Can't have Rome dropping the ball. So good call out.
I love a call out.
Scott.
Love putting a chip on one of our listeners' shoulders. It's great. I'm with you. We got to see it. It's time to start calling it out because Rome has gotten plenty of targets the last few weeks, but none of them seem to work out. Maybe that's more Caleb. Maybe it's more Rome. Up to the viewer to decide. But I tend to think Rome is lacking a little right now. So
you pointed out that percentage for the other receivers compared to Rome, it's night and day, right? Looking at 5 catches on 7 targets, 3 catches on 5 targets. Rome, it's 3 catches on 9 targets, and you're like, why is that the outlier out of all the other skilled position players? Something's not clicking there.
Yeah. Now for me, I think Ozzy's gonna have some struggles in this game. The other option that I had written down was Noah Sewell or DeMarco Jackson, because I feel like LaFleur is going to target whoever is in that other linebacker spot, because Edmonds is still not on the active roster. So I don't think there's any chance that he's back this week. But ultimately, I'm going with Ozzie. Parsons is like Parsons. You can move him around to wherever the weakest matchup is on passing downs, and it's going to be Ozzie. Ozzie's going to be challenged on every single passing down with Micah Parsons just burning off the edge. And my biggest concern with Ozzie is his ability to match speed outside. That is what Parsons is. He is the embodiment of speed outside. So that's where my eyes will be from a concern standpoint throughout this game. But let's go ahead and move it over to the Packers, and we will toss this one back to Brendan first. Who is your nicest man on the Packers this week?
Well, I talked a little bit about her earlier about the tight end position, kind of being in a no man's land after the Tucker Kraft injury. I'm going with Luke Musgrave. I know you have Fitzpatrick here. They're kind of doing like a committee for who the starting tight end is. I think it's still technically Luke Musgrave. But either way, like he's really not good at anything. Like I know he had that nice reception on Thursday, and everyone's like, "Oh, see, like that's what we wanted." All the Packers fans like, "We knew you could do it." It's like, well, that was one time. His blocking sucks. He's not a good receiver. He's pretty much like a net negative anytime he's on the field. And that's been hurting the Packers over the last few weeks. I know I talked about them finding a formula, getting their wide receivers going more. But I just think somebody like Luke Musgrave just doesn't make much of a factor. And also the Bears defense has been playing tight ends a lot better in recent weeks. I know they kind of got gashed a little bit by like Theo Johnson with the Giants a few weeks back. Since then, TJ Hawkinson wasn't as much of a factor against the Vikings. The Steelers, their tight ends were okay. I know there was the Freiermuth touchdown, but there wasn't a whole lot of movement there. And then Dallas Goedert was pretty much invisible last Black Friday. So I just think the Bears tight ends, even with the injuries at linebacker, they're playing tight ends pretty well. And with Luke Musgrave, it's just, if you can get him into a mistake and take advantage of it, I hope that happens because he's just, lost right now.
Yeah, according to the Our Lads depth chart, John Fitzpatrick is the starter, but based on the snap counts, it looks like both they started the game 12 personnel last week, so Fitzpatrick and Musgrave both started, but Musgrave had 36 snaps, Fitzpatrick only had 15, so it should probably be Musgrave on the graphic there. Good call out. Samir, who is your nicest man for the Green Bay Packers?
So I know that you guys kind of put him in the baddest man, but for me, I'm going to go with Josh Jacobs. I just don't think the Packers have been very great at running the ball this year. I know LaFleur wants to, and the Packers games that I've caught, and I also have Josh Jacobs on my fantasy team, so I'm like, this guy's very touchdown dependent. It's like 3 yards in a cloud of dust, I feel like. I think it's a lot of volume. He's averaging less than 4 yards per carry, and the Bears' run defense was bad. I think they've improved steadily. I think they've gotten better. Now, I didn't know about Billings, so Brendan, thanks for mentioning that. I don't know if that necessarily changes what I want to pick, but I do think the Bears can shut Jacobs down. They shut Barkley down last week. Jacobs is no Barkley in terms of speed and shiftiness. He's just kind of I don't know. He's lost. He was shifty, but I think he's lost some of that. He's coming off an injury. I think they can shut him down and make him one-dimensional. So I'm gonna go with Josh Jacobs.
I like it. I didn't realize how inefficient he'd been, but based on the Packers football I've seen, like it tracks just in my head. Ron, what are you thinking for your nicest man?
I do want to make just one quick note here. This is a good shout out to my good buddy Kyle, diehard Bears fan, listens to Bears on Tap. I told you so, Big Pimp. Luke Musgrave was a piece of shit and he sucks. I always told him that Tucker Kraft was the real number one tight end, even since their rookie year, and I was fucking right. Because Musgrave's soft and he sucks. And I'll tell you what, he gives Iowa tight ends a bad name. They just don't make them in Iowa like they used to, man. It's tragic. But I digress. Q, I feel like you and I are probably thinking in the same vein here. So I'm just gonna kind of tee this one up on a platter for you and let you hit the home run and take it away. I'm just going to take the interior offensive line for this Packers team. That's the glaring weakness on this team. And really, you can maybe make that argument on both sides of the ball. You guys mentioned the injury to Wyatt on the defensive side. It really feels like up the middle on the trenches is where they're weakest. And I think because of what we want to see the Bears D-line do, and I think what Bears fans have kind of been yearning for them to do a little bit, Grady Jarrett, Jerron Dexter, even Montez Sweat to an extent, I really want to see some of those matchups against guys like Banks and guys like potentially Morgan, or if it's Belton, the rookie. I want to see them thrive and flourish against this interior offensive line. So that's my nicest men. It's a trio of nicest men, dare I say, on the interior of that Packers O-line queue.
Did it again, double muted.
Sniped by the mute button.
Ron, I am so glad that you chose that because it gives me a chance to choose my secondary one, which I actually like more. But
yeah.
I'm with you. I think this interior can be attacked. I think that they're somewhat like, I think Aaron Banks can be attacked with speed. Mm-hmm. If Anthony Belton is the guy starting at right guard, I definitely think he can be attacked with speed. He's strong as an ox, but the dude can't move. And then if it's Jordan Morgan back from injury, I've always had a bit of an issue with Morgan since he was coming out of, I think it was Arizona, where it's like, this guy's a tackle, but he doesn't have tackle traits. So he plays like a tackle, right? Like he doesn't play like a guard. So you're moving a guy who played college tackle into guard who plays like a tackle. Tyler Steen's the same way in Philly to me, where it's like they're not aggressive, physical enough football players for me to feel confident in that. So it's a guy I think that you can get physical with and find some wins. But for my guy or my spot, I'm going with the Packers interior D line. Losing what's his name? The D tackle they just lost.
Devontae Wyatt.
Yeah, Devontae Wyatt. Losing Devontae Wyatt is massive for this football team. This is a football team that couldn't afford to trade Kenny Clark, in my mind. They didn't have anyone to take his place. Because you look at this, right? Colby Wooden, fine run stuffing defensive end coming out of Auburn, I believe it was. Bit too hefty to play defensive end in the NFL, but kicks inside to a hybrid scheme like the Packers. Still only 275 pounds, though. You know, like he's best in like a 5-tech, 4-eye type alignment. You can't. He's not an interior player who's playing 3-tech, 2-tech, 1-tech. He's a wider defensive lineman, defensive tackle. Mm-hmm. Carl Brooks played edge rusher at Bowling Green, listed at 296. So he can play inside, but again, he's a guy who thrives more in that 4-eye spot. Maybe like he can play 3 as well. But again, I don't see a guy who can really play 1-tech, 2-tech for them. And then like on this graphic, Kingsley Enagbare is an edge rusher. So that's the third guy there. Then they have Warren Brinson as a UDFA, or I think a 6th-round pick or a UDFA out of Georgia. And then another guy who they picked up as a UDFA. And it's like, those guys are big nose tackle types, but they're UDFA and 6th-round pick rookies. Like that is where I'm attacking if I'm the Chicago Bears. I am licking my chops to take my Studley interior offensive line and let them win this game for me, because I see a matchup nightmare for the Green Bay Packers right there.
Yeah, well said, Q. And I think, too, you mentioned it, right? We've seen how creative Ben Johnson's gotten on the interior run scheme. You've had conversations with the great Bobby Peters about some of this as well, right? Kind of that mid zone versus outside zone. Like the Bears want to attack you on the interior, and they're for good reason. That's where their three big horses are, and that's going to be a fun matchup to watch, because that interior 3 beat the absolute piss out of a very good interior on that Philly defensive line. This is a far inferior group to those that were in Philadelphia on Friday.
But let's go ahead and get to our final segment here. Sorry, we're running a little long, guys. I know you got stuff to do and nights to get on with, but we'll get through this in the next 10, 15 minutes.
Keys to victory.
All right, tossing this one to Samir first, because I think you were actually supposed to be first last time around, and I missed it. Samir, what is a key to victory for you in this game?
All right. So you guys know I always like to do one for the offense and one for the defense. Or if you didn't, that's what I like to do. So let's go with the offense first. My key to victory for the offense is first down, second down, first down. And so what I mean by that is stay out of third downs where they know that you're going to have to pass. You know, that's the strength of Sean Gary, Micah Parsons. If they know you have to pass, you're in trouble. And the Packers D has struggled with gap control and like consistency against that split zone offense, which we saw, as you guys alluded to, absolutely shredding Philadelphia. I think you can get those big chunks and get that first, 2nd and 5, first down, 2nd and 3, first down. And I think if you can do that, that's a good key to victory for the offense. And then for the defense, just need to generate pressure with the front four. Love is excellent against the blitz. I think he's got like a pass rating over 130, 131.4. I have written here with 3 touchdowns, no picks. So he's very good against the blitz. The Bears are going to have to figure out how to be able to generate pressure with that front four if they want to rattle in.
I think those are good ones that I agree with there, Samir. But Ron, where are you going for your key to victory?
Yeah, I'm going to keep it really short and simple. I'm kind of stealing mine from last week. Samir and Brendan are going to laugh because they know where I'm going with this. Play bully ball. Just play bully ball. The offensive line needs to beat the absolute shit out of this front for the defense for the Packers. Just be the bigger bully on the field. You were in Philadelphia against a D line that a lot of people in the league consider to be a very bully front defensive line. This D line, especially on the interior, is a night and day difference. And even Micah Parsons, Q, you brought up a great point earlier. He's a smaller defensive end who thrives in pass rush situations. You know how you nullify those guys? You beat the living piss out of them. Darnell Wright will eat Micah Parsons alive in the run game. Play bully ball. Just bully this Packers front into submission. And give Q another 85 plays that he has to watch and dissect on for the offensive line because they just control the time of session. Play bully ball. That's all I want to see.
Yeah, I will never complain about them giving me 90 plays because it means that the game probably went well. But Brendan, where are you going for your key to victory?
All right, I got 2, kind of like Samir. I'll start with defense. Just limit the big plays. We know what some of these receivers can do. They can get behind you. They can be explosive. They do run some underneath routes, but you just see a lot of extended plays, guys breaking free, long touchdowns. I mean, you're looking at Christian Watson. All the guys, though. I mean, Dotavian Wicks has had moments. Romeo Doubs has had moments. I think Matthew Golden's coming back. I can't remember, but just, limit those big plays as much as you can, because I think what you guys said about, Josh Jacobs not being the most efficient runner, that will kind of help you because just with some of the mismatches potentially at cornerback. I know I talked about Kevin Byard being able to, potentially eat Jordan Love's lunch, but at the same time, these receivers can make them pay. So limit those big plays. And then just a philosophical one, kind of what Ron said about the bully ball, but just be ready for the challenge because a switch has been flipped now ever since that Philly game. You are no longer let's see if the Bears could do something good. They're having such a nice season. And then when you go in and you flip the script and you beat the piss out of Philly on a national stage, everybody looks at you different. And now the Bears are starting. I mean, literally, they are the hunted now, being the number 1 seed in the NFC. This is not a position this team has been in years. It's always been them trying to upset somebody, even on the road. This is still the team now that is going to have to be ready for the best shot. And now with the target on their backs, I'm very interested to see how Ben Johnson has these guys prepared because, I think when it comes to the formula, the bully ball makes sense against Philly, but you were going in there as a very big underdog. And now I think just expectations have changed. And I think the coaching philosophy and sort of that preparation, it shouldn't change, but I think that mentality kind of has to as the season progresses, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that does. I know I've given out essentially bully ball as a key a few times this year. So I'm always a big fan of that one. Now, for my keys to victory, I've got a few written down here, and the two that I'm really keyed in on are in the pass game, attack the seams, expose the Green Bay linebackers in space. They play a very downhill attack. I was blown away by how quick they are to trigger downhill against the run and just blow it up. Like they have been a strong run defense this year. And I think how instinctive they are is a big reason why. But I also think that can be abused in the pass game, especially you have. I know Isaiah McDuffie's been playing well for them, but he is, Quay Walker's been out, so he is the second string guy there, and I do think that you can attack their secondary. Like even Cooper, he has been by PFF grade and by numbers a good coverage player, but coverage is still something that is pretty fresh to him. I question how much responsibility he's really carrying in coverage, which puts more weight on their safeties to cover the middle of the field and all of that. So I think attacking those seams is huge. And another thing that I really noticed, this corner room really isn't that strong, right? Kayshawn Nixon and Carrington Valentine, they're okay they're fine role players. I think good like CB2s, but they don't really have a strong dude in the room. And there's a lot of pressure on them to play a lot of match zone coverage, was kind of what I interpreted from from looking at the Lions game. And that combined with they just don't play man. They have one of the lowest man rates of any team in the NFL. So again, that's putting a lot of pressure on their safeties to be right in match coverage, to be right. Like with McKinney, I'm sure he's right most of the time in match coverage, but Evan Williams is still a very young player. I don't know how much match coverage he's actually played in his career, and I'm sure there are ways to confuse him. So to me, finding those opportunities over the middle of the field and up the seams are going to be huge for the passing game in this one. And then defensively, this one fits in well with what a few of you guys have already said, but the Bears cornerbacks need to play their cleanest game of the year this week. Matt LaFleur is too good at putting coverage players in conflict to create that space to make easy throws for you not to be clean and on your P's and Q's and on top of everything. If you're not, he will eat you up. So the Bears' ability to communicate and execute cleanly on the back end, I think, is going to make or break this game. But with that being said, let's get into some predictions, and we'll just go down the line, starting with Ron. Ron, how do you see this one breaking?
Oh, man, I'll tell you what. I still feel good about this game, but I will be damned if I don't think that a division game is going to come down to the wire. It's going to be close. I'm expecting a very close football game this coming weekend. It's going to be a little chilly. I don't think there's any snow in the forecast. Should be typical Lambeau Field weather. I'm going to say Bears 27, Packers 24. I think just like both of the games last year, it's going to come down to Cairo Santos's leg in order to pick him up. And so I'm going to go 27-24, but the Bears are going to come out on top.
Samir?
I like that, Ron. So we predicted that upset over the Eagles, where I think they were a 7-point underdog. They're a 6.5-point underdog here at Lambeau. So it's kind of a similar situation. Can they win this game? Absolutely. However, I don't think they're going to run the table for the remainder of their schedule. And this is probably their hardest game left. So for me, I'm just kind of thinking it's going to be a close game. I do think Green Bay is really tough at home. I do think they're going to make Caleb's life uncomfortable. I got the Packers edging out the Bears here 24-21, but we'll get our revenge in a couple weeks after that.
Brendan, how you see it breaking?
I picked against the Bears the last 2 weeks. Call me an unbeliever, call me a hater. I just figured at some point this team was going to break down, and they haven't. And in fact, they've gotten better. Like, it's crazy. I maybe just, for the Cosmos, I should pick the Packers to win just to keep this roll going and make me feel like a big idiot. But guys, something changed in me against Philly. I have full belief in this team, and they're going to have to show me now that they're going to, I don't want to say collapse, but they're going to hit a speed bump. And until they do, I don't know. I have to pick them to win. I feel really confident about this. Talking about it like what I said with Caleb Williams kind of having that clutch factor in Green Bay. I just think that's so huge. Other Bears quarterbacks could not win there. He does it on his first try. Ben Johnson, we talked about just, his record against Detroit or against Green Bay when he was with Detroit. I just think this team is battle tested right now. They know they're the hunted, but they have the right leadership both on and off the field to get them ready for this game. It is probably going to come down to the wire, but you know what? Cairo's been clutch. I'm going to say 26-24 Bears.
26-24. Okay, so as you guys have been talking, I've gone through a few iterations in my head, and as I'm sitting here thinking about, like, in our mind, right? Like we want Jordan Love turnovers. We want Matt LaFleur to lose trust. I think when that happens, the Packers offense totally breaks. So if that's what I see happening, and the Bears running a ball control heavy offense, just destroying that clock, give me Bears 21, Packers 13.
Ooh.
Yeah.
All right. All right.
All right, guys. Well, any final thoughts before we close this thing out? Just the floor is open.
It's excited, man. I think we're all excited. I think we all can't wait for Sunday.
All right. Well, let's get out of here with a good old bear down, just going down the line, starting with Ron, and then we'll talk to everyone in a few days or week
Bear
next
down,
week.
baby.
Bear down, guys.
Let's go.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Bear down.
Prove me wrong.